Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the United Front Football Podcast. Episode number 6. We keep coming back. Unscheduled break over the international break. We did intend on recording an episode, but my voice didn't, which completely went, and I think I had COVID. So, yeah, circumstances stopped that. But it's good to be back, and it's good to see you again, Breezy. I'm sure you had, well, at least you had a good start to the weekend, and then it went down a little bit from there, didn't it? But
Yeah, pretty much. There was a 45-minute period on the Saturday. I was like, everything's brilliant. This is great. And then
fantastic. I heard you screaming from up there.
Yeah, just kind of came slamming back down to reality. But that's just what happens. And God, that's not even the FM Super League. So
yeah,
there was no
are we talking about that? Or?
I don't think we have to. I did badly. You did all right. I think that's a pretty decent summary.
We'll coast it over you. Yeah, we'll just coast over the absolute battering, the snotting I gave you weekday one.
Yeah, please do.
Right, well, we'll start as we always do with some of the hot takes and comments from everyone over on Twitter. As always, before we record the pod, we put out a tweet asking for your hot takes or opinions from the weekend. We go through the replies and give you kind of a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumb in the eye if it's a really bad opinion. So yeah, make sure you follow us over there at the United Front at United Frontcast, and get your opinions in next week. We'll start off with one from Jord, I think, which is I don't know if it's a hot take. It's something that I've kind of seen being mooted a little bit, and something that I don't know if I disagree with. He says, quality-wise, this is one of the worst showings by newly promoted clubs. Can't really see any of them staying up. And I mean, we've talked about Luton before, and kind of how they just look not at the races. Sheffield United as well. We've talked about Burnley. I think we all, well, me and you, and most people I spoke to, expected them to be doing more than they are. Now, as we're talking, the game is going against Nottingham Forest, so depending on the result there, I think it's 1-1 at the time of recording. They might be picking up our point, but I think everyone expected a little bit more from Burnley. But then, is that just more because it's, they played some great football last year, they've got like an exciting young manager? Like, when you actually look at the players on the pitch, it's a very championship side, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's something I actually wanted to talk about last week, actually, but I think we've all sort of fallen into that trap that we sometimes do when a team like Burnley comes up from the Championship. You've seen it before with I think Fulham when they came up under, I can never remember the manager's name. It was before Marco Silva. Jovanovic, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Like, they came up playing really, really good football. Mitrovic was on fire. Like, Norwich have also had a couple of times they've come up. Things when they had Buendia and Timo Pukki was on fire, they came up and everyone was like, oh, they're going to be really, really good in the Premier League. And they keep trying to play this sort of expansive attacking style of football when they get there, and they just get found out very, very quickly. Whereas I think you've seen teams in the past, such as like Brentford, I think have been a really, really good example, who have just sort of come up and taken to the Premier League straight away. But it's more because their style of football allows them to, if that makes sense, because Brentford are very well organised, but also just a very good counter-attacking side. So I think with Burnley specifically, yeah, it's just that thing of it's almost like they think they can get away with playing the exact same way they did last season in a much tougher league. And I think it sort of just goes to show that even though the Championship has got more quality in it now than it probably used to even 5 years ago, like, it's still a massive step up to the Premier League. And I think looking at the business Burnley have done this summer, like, it's just they just signed loads of young players, no one's really heard of before, and it's going to take a bit of time. Like, and unless if company's going to be insisting on sticking with this particular style of play, I do think they're going to struggle this season. Like, I think I had them finishing mid-table. I very quickly am sort of reverting that prediction. I think if they carry on playing this way, they are going to be down there battling. They just might be a bit fortunate that there's potentially 3 other teams worse than them.
I think I was the same. Like, I don't think I had them like quite comfortably mid-table, but like, lower mid-table, skirting around that, the old West Ham spot, just outside of the just outside of the relegation battle. You guys are good now. I don't know what the hell's going on. It's a cursed timeline.
Give it a couple of years.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
They're just keeping it warm for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of had them around there, but yeah, like, similar. I mean, I must say I've not watched tons of Burnley football this year. Granted, it's only 5 games into the season, but it's mainly been highlights and bits of games that I've caught here and there. So it'd be good to actually get a full, watching experience of a full Burnley game, and maybe even like 10 games in, get a bit of a look at how they're doing. But I think the bigger worry for Burnley and those other promoted sides is it feels like a lot of the teams around them, like a lot of the teams that were fighting around a relegation battle last year, have quite significantly improved. So you're looking at teams like Bournemouth, who I think are loads better. You look at Wolves, who a lot of people had being in that relegation fight. And I think if they continue to kind of get results like they are, they will be. But when you actually look at the quality of their performances, they're just a finish away from getting 3 points on altitude. They should have beaten United. They were really unlucky against Liverpool. They should have been 2 or 3 up by half time. And at that point, like, is the game gone from Liverpool? Obviously, Liverpool have got untold quality and strength on the bench that they can bring off, and that was the telling thing at the end of it. But Wolves played really well, and every game I've seen Wolves play, they've actually been brilliant. They just can't get the ball in the back of the net. And other teams around there as well, like Forest, I think, they're looking pretty solid, obviously playing right now, but they've got a striker who can't stop scoring. They've got like a solid core team, similar to Brentford, right? Like, really well structured, well drilled. They've got players who play really well in the transition, like, and that's what kind of creates those chances. And I think like the teams that would historically be battling it out against relegation are loads better. Palace is another great example, right? Like how good do Palace look at times? Like they've got really good teams, and now you're getting these teams who are coming up from the Championship, who are stacked with a load of young players and Championship players. How do you break into that? Like it's going to be a really tough ask for any of them, really. Obviously, I hope they do. We'll see how it goes. I think Luton are at the bottom of the table on 0 points right now. I don't think anyone saw any different. Everton are really struggling, so we'll see how they can do. But again, like I think Everton, in the way that they are playing, they are creating chances. They just don't have that person to stick the ball in the back of the net. Now that DCL's back and they signed a couple of strikers, give it another 5 games, they might be on 6 or 7 points or something, and it might be a very different outlook. But it's how many of those teams are going to be around those newly promoted teams to actually have a relegation fight with, rather than are they going to be down there, I think.
Yeah, I think as well, also it's important to remember that, like, I do agree with George saying this is the worst sort of set of promoted teams that we've had in a while. But I think it is. But I think it's almost unfair to compare, because we've had in recent years, like, obviously, it wasn't that long ago that Wolves came up, and obviously they had loads of investment at the time, and with Ruben Neves and that coming in, they had Nottingham Forest, who have just continued to invest, and they still had, like, they're still going to keep doing that. Fulham as well come up recently, and then there's Chelsea as well. And I think Villa in recent years as well. So there's definitely been some bigger clubs who you would normally expect to be in the Premier League have come up over recent years as well, why I think last year there were maybe some, and in the Championship, teams like Norwich underperformed quite badly last year as well. I think, like, it's definitely one of the weaker sort of set of promoted teams we've had in a while, but it's just a shame they weren't able to get a bit more quality for the dogs to make the season, that sort of part of the season, a little bit more interesting. Because really, like, everyone goes on about the title fight, but I always find the relegation fight, especially when I'm not involved in it, very, very exciting towards the end of the season. So,
well, the thing, especially like the last few years as well, it's pretty much been wrapped up by Man City by
that's
March. So like, I'm watching watching everyone scrapping it out at the bottom is always the entertaining bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, well, speaking of teams down the bottom, we mentioned Sheffield United briefly there. Keeney's come in. Now, honestly, I was coming back from the game on Saturday, and I was a bit like, when City were 2-1 up, I was checking my phone. I was like, okay, could be worse. I said to my mates, could be worse. Spurs are losing at home to Sheffield United. That's funny. I had a go laugh about that. And as I'm walking back to the station, I had a couple of guys in front of me being like, "Oh, do you about Spurs to score 2 goals in injury time?" I was like, no, they haven't. I pulled my phone out and saw that Spurs had scored 2 goals in injury time to beat Sheffield United. Paul
Richarlison had scored, and I didn't believe it. So.
Yeah, I know. I thought, exactly. I thought it was a prank, but no, clearly not. Bikini comes in with a question regarding Paul Heckingbottom's comments after the game. Bikini says, Paul Heckingbottom complained about the amount of added time his team was taking, 2 minutes per set piece. Clearly doesn't know the new rules around added time to stop shit like this. Obviously, Paul Heckingbottom kind of went in on the officials after the game. And I think his main gripe was with, I think his goalkeeper got a yellow card for taking too long over a goal kick. And he was annoyed that the referee essentially told him to kick it long. And he was saying, well, the ref's now dictating to us how we're meant to play. But I'm like, no, I didn't watch the games. I only saw a match today and stuff, so I didn't get like a real insight to how much time wasting was actually going on. But like, do I find it difficult to believe that a new promoted team playing away at Tottenham when you're a goal up are taking time over goal kicks on purpose, I think it's pretty believable, rather than like, no, we were just trying to wait for our centre backs to figure out where to stand before we kick short to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel they probably were wasting time on purpose.
It did reek of, again, like I only watched the highlight and the post match interviews. It reeked of he was fuming that he lost the game in added time, basically. He's like, I'm fuming that we've lost this game in added time. I know I've told my players to take 15 minutes to do anything. Like, but I can't believe they're holding it against us. It's it did feel a little bit like that, because he was like vibrating with how angry he was as well.
and Keeney's got a point as well. Like, I mean, the new time wasting laws and the new extra time stuff, like where you get more added time per game, pretty much, like all Premier League managers and staff would have been told about this. Well, they do get briefed about this at the start of every season. Like, this shouldn't have come as a surprise. So it's like, just because it may have worked for you in the Championship now, it's like it's not going to be the same this year. So it's like, I don't know. I get the one I probably got more sympathy with him for, which I did see on match day, was Ollie McBurney got booked for just the referee. I think he got given a foul given against him, and you see him just goes to the referee. No, he's pulling my shirt, and the referee just gave him.
Yeah. That's
like, I think it's his second yellow actually as well.
Yeah,
Set him up. So that one I can understand, because that is a bit like, it wasn't like screaming in his face. He was just saying to him, "No, ref, you had to hold my shirt." Like, it did seem a bit harsh to give him a second yellow for that.
Yeah, that is the more egregious of the two. But yeah, the time wasting thing, like, and every manager's dealing with it, right? I mean, United conceded a winning goal by Declan Rice in the 96th minute. Like, we're all struggling with it. Like, it's not just them, but I can see how he would be aggrieved that way. With it being, was it like the 94th and 97th minute or something that the Spurs 2 goals?
Not even, I think it was like 98th and 114th or something like that. It was ridiculous, yeah. Like, it was silly.
Yeah, well, maybe don't waste so much time, eh?
Yeah. And when in doubt, Sheffield United fans, just blame Carlos Tevez. So
yeah, the easy way out. Here's one I actually quite like from Wald McConville. All punditry panels of at least 3 people should contain a goalkeeper. It's the most specialised position on the pitch, and we all we get for analysis is he should have saved that from some gobshite who has no clue about goalkeeping. I mean, most pundits are gobshites anyway, but yeah, especially when you've got like a big panel. So like on a Soccer Saturday, or like, even some Match of the Day panels where they've got more people on. Maybe you should have a goalkeeper in there. I think you always get tons of Liverpool players. You also get tons of defenders and tons of strikers, but like, that's about it. Danny Murphy gets in there somehow. But yeah, I'd love to have like a goalkeeper's eye view of things. Like, as an ex-goalkeeper myself, obviously not to any real level, but the amount of times where even I can go, you don't know what you're talking about with this. It's like, oh, you should have saved that. It's like, what, you should have saved it even though he was diving one way, his weight was all going that way, it got deflected. Like, just because it was near him doesn't mean it was savable, right? It's things like that.
There was a Monday Night Football where Rob Green was on. They had Rob Green on as a guest, and they did a whole big segment. I think spoke about his mistake in the World Cup and just sort of goalkeeping in general. And it's fascinating because you never get that insight. Like I said, I remember there was I hate to bring it up, but there was that game where West Ham came back from 3 goals down to draw 3-3 at Spurs. Great times.
Terrible times.
But like and it's the one where Lanzini scored that absolute like just first time weldy from like 30 yards out to get the equaliser. And I remember after the game, Roy Keane being like, it's a good enough strike, but Lloris really should be saving it. And I'm like, I feel like you're only saying that because he gets a fingertip to it. It still doesn't mean he should have saved it. It is an unbelievable goal that goes in off the underside of the crossbar. Like, in what universe should he have saved it? Or Roy Keane again, whenever like a goalkeeper makes a save, he's just like, oh, he's just doing his job. And it's like, it's just very, very lazy punditry. And like, I've listened to podcasts and stuff with former goalkeepers, and I know they hate it when like other pundits will be like, oh, he's been beating his near post. Like, it's some sort of like thing that should never happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it would be great to have a goalkeeper on there just to be like, well, no, hang on a minute.
This is why this has happened. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, you get so much in-depth analysis. Like, you get 20 minutes from Gary Neville talking about how Trent Alexander-Arnold should stand, like when he's in the defensive position. Like, it would be nice to get a little bit more insight from a goalkeeper. So yeah. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, it's something that I'm noticing a load. I mean, everyone's dogpiling on Man United at the minute, but it's something that you get in a load with Onana. It's like, oh, well, he's conceded 7 goals, or like, what is it, 9 goals or whatever it is. And it's like, well, he should be doing better. It's like, have you watched any of the games? Have you seen where these shots are going in? There was one maybe like the second goal yesterday, like because he got two hands to it, but just pushed it into the side of the net rather than around the post. So maybe he could have done better with that. The other ones are like, you know, I mean, it says
Really
more
good
about
finishes.
yeah, just great finishes in the bottom corners. Like what can you do?
Yeah.
And it's like, but people will look at like, oh, he's faced 15 shots and has conceded 9. Like, well, he's obviously terrible then. It's like, no, like some of these finishes are brilliant. There's maybe one, maybe two where he could have done a little bit better. But let's not pretend like David De Gea wasn't flapping balls into the bottom corners all season last year. Let's not pretend like everyone's perfect. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I'd be well up for it. Get Ben Foster in. Get the Fozcast on.
Do you know what? I used to like Ben Foster. He's just getting on my nerves now because there is a little bit of it where it's like, okay, come on, Ben, you're in your 40s. Maybe just like you're not 18. Just tone it down. He still talks like he's a lad going out for his first pint in the pub. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
he's very energetic.
Yeah, it's just gets a bit cringe after a while. But yeah, I'd like to say if it was like anyone like Rob Green, like Tim Howard does punditry like for the States coverage. He's usually pretty good. Like there's loads of good retired goalkeepers out there who I'm sure would be happy to come on and go toe to toe with the regular pundits and stuff when it comes to goalkeeping. So I don't know why more like BT and Sky aren't making it happen. Really,
the only one that ever seems to get a look in for BT and Sky is Peter Schmeichel, and he talks out of his arsehole. So. I'm still not better that he played for City, honest.
Yeah, no, fair. No, I remember Kasper Schmeichel was on. I think on Monday Night Football once. He was really, really good. He's someone I'd like to see, but he's still playing. So I don't think maybe a few more years. Yeah, kind of.
Depending where he's
on now.
He's in Belgium.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, lovely this time of year. To be fair.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a few about United, but we'll save them for now. I actually want to go to some questions that we got last week before we found out we can record last week. Obviously, there was the England-Scotland game last week. I want to say it was last Tuesday. We will go into that a little bit more depth later on, hopefully. But a question, there's been a lot of Gareth Southgate talk over the last week, not unsurprisingly. And HG16 has asked, when Gareth Southgate does eventually leave England, which is reportedly supposed to be after the Euros, who is the ideal replacement that is actually attainable? Because obviously, when the first report came out, it was like, oh yeah, the FA considering Pep. He's like, yeah, I'm sure they are. But like,
I'm considering Margot Robbie.
So yeah, who's like a realistic? I know you said you're not like sort of super bothered when it comes to England stuff, but obviously you pay attention to the tournament stuff. Who's someone who England could realistically get that you would like to see take this group further?
I think it's very dependent on how a lot of teams do. I think the FA are always going to try and swing to an English or British manager at least, and that really depends on how some teams do. A load of people were saying Graham Potter. And as much as I do like Graham Potter as a coach, I don't know if he's the kind of coach that you want in international management, because he seems like a very meticulous, tactical, like you need to spend a lot of time learning this, and you just don't get that in the international game. Like you can't go and play. The only reason that teams like Spain could play like Barcelona is because they had 9 Barcelona players in the starting 11, and then the one that wasn't was like, just some like Sergio Ramos. Like that's not going to be a problem, is it? So you got Sergio Ramos and the Barcelona team. So like that's why that could work. But for the most part, it needs to be someone who can be like a decent man manager, set teams up well, and just try and get the most out of the players in their best positions. And for me, and the reason I say it's very dependent on how they do this year, it could be Eddie Howe. I think if Eddie Howe doesn't have the standout year he had last year, doesn't quite manage to get the same results last year, and we've talked about the extra stress on the team at Newcastle with all the European games, and they've still got quite a thin, like a threadbare squad. If he finishes 8th, 9th, he could be out of a job. And I think what he managed to do with the play, obviously they signed some players, but what the performances he managed to get out of those Newcastle players that looked a shadow of the players they were before under different managers, could be really good for England. Sets up really well, obviously like very tactically aware, but not it's not all about playing a ridiculously expansive type of football. It's being very solid, being good on the transition, getting the best out of the players that you got on the pitch. And I think if you have someone who is, and he's shown that he's willing to go a bit gung-ho, like he'll play a 4-2-4, he'll play tricky wingers, he'll play 3 behind a striker. Whereas the big thing the big criticism for Southgate is always he plays too reserved. Like I totally get being reserved in international football, but there's being reserved in international football and only picking 2 defensive midfielders who don't play football anymore. Like you're going in with, Rice obviously is fantastic, but then you're looking at putting in Henderson, who's basically retired, or Phillips, who doesn't play football. It's like, well, they're the options. It's going to be a midfield of those 2. It's like, why? Why can't you have a couple of expressive midfielders in there? And I feel like Eddie Howe would go with that. He'd take the handbrake off a little bit, as a lot of people have said. And in terms of like English managers, there's not a load more, unless you're going to promote someone from the under-21s. Obviously, the under-21s won the last tournament. Maybe they could go for an internal appointment, like they did with Southgate. They could push that. Slim pickings if you stay in English anyway. I don't know about you. How would you feel if the England team had an international coach again, as in like a non-British coach?
I was going to say, very harsh on Southgate.
Yeah. East Championship.
So, I mean, I definitely agree on Eddie Howe. I think he'd be my go-to. Like, I think my worry with Graham Potter would be he's already, again, I don't necessarily really blame what happened at Chelsea on him. Like, I think that club's just a basket case, but
I mean, it's being proved again, right? Like with
exactly.
everyone's going, Pochettino, fantastic, finally a good manager, and he's coming in, and the same thing's happening.
Exactly, and I think going from a circus like Chelsea into, like, there's not many jobs in world football that is more scrutinised than the England job. Like, there's obviously you've got your Man United job, the Real Madrid job, and then I think you got the England job up there with it. Like, it's just constant, like, microscope on every decision you make, and I don't necessarily know if or think that's what Graham Potter necessarily needs at this point in his career, especially given what's happened with Chelsea. So I think pre-Chelsea, he'd have been my go-to. Now I think it's a bit of a risk. And I like you said, I think he needs to be on the training ground more than a few times a year, basically, to sort of get his ideas across. In terms of, like, I mean, I don't really care if it's a non-English manager. Like, I've never been that bothered by it, as long as they're successful. Like, I get that I think there's a stat that, like, the sort of teams who have a manager from their own country tend to do better than, teams with foreign coaches or whatever. But, like, I don't know.
In terms of major international tournaments, there's only one nation who's won a tournament that's not their own nationality.
Right.
That was
Okay.
Greece, with the
Right.
Euros.
Right.
But I think that might actually, depending on like South American tournaments, I'm not sure. But but then again, like, how much is that chicken and egg? How much is that the countries only hire their own nationality? So therefore, obviously, it's going to kind of go.
Of course. Of course. That's the thing. In terms of international managers, I don't know. Like, it's just such a tricky one, because I think ideally you want someone who's got that experience of managing in tournaments, and, like, only whether people like it or not, Southgate's got that, like, has got that experience, and I think he's shown that he's done a pretty good job. I think he's got very good at navigating his way through tournaments. And I actually think for knockout football, pragmatism's a pretty good way to go. Like, I don't really know how to feel about having a manager who wants to go in there and sort of go super gung ho, because I think that would expose our weakest part of our squad, which is the defense. So, and like you say, it's slim pickings. It's a really difficult job for the FA to find a replacement. I think I'm the same as you. Eddie Howe will be my main pick, but outside of that, I'm really struggling to think of a suitable candidate, really. I just fucking hope it's not Frank Lampard, because that would...
I don't even think the FA are that mental.
No.
But yeah, I agree. Like I said,
not.
Pragmatism, I totally get. I just think the lack of willingness to change things on the fly or try something different when things aren't working. It's all well and good, like, when it's working, when you're winning 1 or 2-0, and you're holding back and being a bit pragmatic. It's another thing when things aren't working, and then you just look a bit lost. When you've got, like, some of the best young attacking players in the world on the bench, and you're subbing on a DM for the last 15 minutes of the game or something, trying to make that change. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an interesting time after the Euros, and it's going to be interesting. I think this Euros is definitely going to it's going to really show whether it's been a successful or a failure, the whole Gareth Southgate with England thing. Because I think with the quality of the players at his disposal, and the strength of other teams, and how the aging teams in Europe, this is probably like the best chance to win something. To be honest, we haven't got the worldwide. Well, obviously the World Cup. Like, there's fewer teams in it, strong teams, granted, but I don't think there's any team really that boasts the wealth and kind of the amount of players in their prime that England do, to be honest. And maybe that's just me being a bit blinkered as a,
I think that I disagree. I think Portugal and France. I think Portugal.
Oh, well, France is a really good point.
Yeah, France. Like this is the thing I struggle with. Like, I don't know. I think for the Euros, I think absolutely we should be considered one of the favourites, but not the out and out favourites. I think France is still really, really strong. Got to the World Cup final, and even then, like in that World Cup, I don't think there was many teams in that tournament who gave France as good of a game as we did. Like probably other than Argentina in the final. Like we gave them a really good game, and another day we probably win it and go further. And I think Portugal, they've got Roberto Martinez as manager, so that obviously that hamstrings them a little bit. But like their squad depth is ridiculous. Like, and I think that's what those two nations in particular have that we don't. It's like I think we've got a really, really strong starting 11. I think outside of that is the sort of depth is where it's starting to is where you run into a few issues. Like if you pick up an injury to like Bellingham or Kane or Rice, for example, like even just those three off the top of my head, like we're considerably weaker. I don't think the other nations really have that issue.
Central midfield and forward, I think England are fine. it's anything that's like possibly. Number 6 and backwards. Like you've got a couple of left backs. We've got a load of right backs. Can we just play right backs?
We have to be fair. We must do a whole podcast on England because as much as I hate the conversation, like I hate international breaks because I touched on it last week, the whole conversation around England and Southgate and stuff. But I do think there's an interesting conversation to be had when people aren't just being massively hyperbolic about it. But,
yeah, we'll save it for the next international break.
Yeah.
Speaking of questions from last week, we've had a question from Scott Chapman. Now, I can't actually have any input on this because I've not actually watched it because I'd rather do anything than do it. He wants us to discuss the fantastic. I mean, when I read out the quote, you'll completely understand why. We'd like you both to discuss the fantastic referee show hosted by the incredible and relevant Michael Owen, where we heard the questionable VAR audio. When I saw it, I was like, I'd rather stick pins in my eyes.
I watched it. I didn't watch every single one. I think they're going to make it a regular thing throughout the season, where I think it's like a monthly thing. They'll pick up like 4 instances. And they picked up the Onana against Wolves one, which one I watched, and it was the Van Dijk red card one. That was one I watched. Van Dijk red card one's fine, like it's obviously a red card. But like the Onana, like I think it doesn't really matter what was said. Like they basically you hear him on the pitch being like going from one. I think Scott says it like I paraphrase the tweet in a running order, but like he says in the full tweet, like they basically go from Onana's really clumsy and reckless to it's fine, don't worry, but no penalty. And it's kind of like, and my thing is. I found the reaction to it more interesting. That loads of people were being like, God, this is great. We need more of this. We need to hear the referees more. And I'm like, but what purpose does it serve other than just hearing them being competent in real time? Do you know what I mean? Like what I don't understand. Like, okay, if I hear the audio, I can understand how they've come to that decision. But if the decision's still wrong,
it doesn't change.
Who does that benefit? Like what am I supposed to do with that information? It's I don't know. It's like it's like you get served a really bad meal. You go into the kitchen and the chef shows you how he did it badly, and you go, okay, can I still have my refund, please? Like,
yeah.
I've had better analogies than that, but
yeah, no, it made sense. Like you say, that's another reason I wasn't really that interested in watching it. It's like, well, if it's a bad decision, either they're going to own up to it and it doesn't change the decision, so what's the point anyway? Or they're going to try and swing it so it looks like they made the right decision. Like that's the only, that's all it is. And if they make a right decision, they're just going to spend 10 minutes patting themselves on the back for getting a decision right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd rather hear the conversation.
It's his job, by the way.
Yeah, I'd rather hear the conversation whilst watching the game on the telly rather than after the facts.
Yeah.
Because at least I think at least then. But even then, at least in the moment, you understand it. Whereas when it's after the facts, again, even then, it's still the same outcome. Because if they come to the wrong decision, you're just like, it's like you can phone in and argue with them. Like, every time there's a phone a friend option.
Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need to have red button option, penalty or not penalty. Vote now. You get your 2 minutes. Everyone gets a vote.
Yeah, that's right. It goes to the screen. It's just a poll.
Yeah. I mean, sign me up. Let's go next year.
Yeah, do you know what?
Prime Barclays.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be so many wrong calls because like fans would be trolling, but I don't care. At least it'll be funny.
Yeah, it'd be hilarious. Sign me up.
Oh, dearie me. Right, Dan. Shall we talk about Man United?
Nope.
Yeah, I thought it's become a recurring theme in the last few episodes. We've got a few questions, a few Man United based questions. Obviously off the back of another defeat. It's Man United, so obviously everyone wants to point and laugh, which I understand and I back, quite frankly. First one's coming from Cookie saying, "What is needed at United if things don't improve by January?" And he's also had an additional hot take that United and Chelsea will be battling for just European football. Hell, at this rate, neither of them will get it. And one more from Cameron. Cameron Hewitt says, "Why are people calling out Eric Ten Hag, and how stupid are they?" So you get a little bit of both there, a little bit of both sides.
Well, in terms of why people are calling out ATH, it's something that I've talked about numerous times. It gets clicks, it sells papers. I think he's shown.
Just to jump in, is there not legitimate reasons to criticize him though?
Oh yeah. But I think there's a difference between going, I don't quite agree with how he's set up or the changes that were made in that game. That's a valid criticism sometimes, and loads of managers do it. It's another thing to be saying, it's been 5 games and they've only won 2. It's time to sack him. When finished 3rd in the league last year, won a cup. Granted, it's the cup that no one cares about, but still won a cup. There's a big clear out of a load of toxic toxic characters in the dressing room. Still a few there, maybe not toxic, but players whose time is done at United. So there's still that going on. We've got untold amount of injuries because of our dreadful pre-season schedule, and obviously the other stuff that the Anthony stuff, the Greenwood stuff. We've got the Sancho debacle rolling on. It's a lot of stuff that's going on, and I bet sometimes people will just walk past his office and he'll just have his head in his hands. It's what's going on? Why did I come here? Why did I come to this absolute dumpster fire of a football club? Just crying.
Just imagine the players. Gaffer's crying again. Oh dear.
But that is the case. It's but it's always just the case of, all right, well, the reactive thing is well, Ten Hag's obviously got it wrong, even though I'd say in the balance of things he's got 95% of the things he's done right. Granted, away form's not good enough, and the big thing that people are going on now is oh well, United have just lost their 31 game unbeaten run at home. It's yeah, but who made that unbeaten run? the guy that's just lost it. And again, Brighton were great, right? Surprise. No one knew that Brighton were great, right?
I know. I do feel there's a little bit of, and I'll be honest, this comes from more not like Sky or B2 and all that, because they do have people who know roughly what they're talking about, but more like the Talk Sports and the Rory Jennings and the Boovies of the world.
Jamie O'Hara.
Yeah, those sort of people who will just say anything. But it's the sort of attitude still of it's yeah, but Man United shouldn't be losing to Brighton. I mean, come on. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of attitude where it's yeah, sure, you can think that if you've just been not paying attention to the Premier League for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
How good Brighton actually are.
And how everybody is rightfully saying what a great manager De Zerbi is, and how he has this style of play that works with the players that he's got, and how he's getting the most out of them, and they do play wonderful football. But it was a really good opening 20 minutes from United where we didn't finish our chances. We had chances in the game to score. I'm not going to go out and say, oh well, the Højlund goal should have stood, because who knows. My only question with that is if you can tell if someone's off by an armpit hair, offside, why can't you tell it if the ball is over the line with a digital line? What's the difference? Why can't that be a thing, rather than just seeing some grainy photos of the ball in movement and going, yeah, that's probably over the line?
Yeah, the picture I saw looked pretty clear cut that it was over.
Yeah, it looked like the Japan-Germany game to me, and the whole thing with that was the curvature of the ball on the line. But that's what I mean. Just use those stupid lines that nobody likes. just use them for that if you want to do it. If we're gonna VAR it, then VAR it. But again, had chances. Rashford looked really dangerous until he got frustrated and was just shooting rather than looking for a cross. I thought Højlund looked really good, but that was about it. The way that we played against them nullified Brighton in the first 20 minutes. We looked good, created some chances, didn't take them, and Brighton Brighton managed to figure out the way to work around it. And like, he's just a really good manager, De Zerbi. Like, that's what happened. Like, they got a goal against the run of play in the first half. They obviously kind of went over what was happening for the second half, and things changed. And they took the game. It was more even, I think, than the scoreline looked at 3-0. But Brighton were the better side in the second half, definitely, and deserved to win it. I don't know whether it was a 3-1 game again, but there were times where United looked just a bit shambolic, to be honest. And like I've said, there's a ton of injuries. We're missing, first choice centre backs, left backs. We've got, a patched up midfield. We've got Eriksen trying to play like a position that where he has to cover tons and tons of the pitch, which he can't do. He's lucky if he can get through an hour, let alone like trying to be a touchline to touchline defensive player. But yeah, we're like kind of riddled with injuries. The team that we put out was like our fit 11. I found out now today that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is going to be out for 2 months. Like, he's been so like but it's there's not a lot. Yeah, there's not a lot of like TalkSport pundits who I kind of agree with or listen to. But Dean Saunders was speaking a lot of sense. He's like, you look at the pre-season schedule, and in the space of 2 weeks, we'd flown, I think, from the east to the west coast of the United States, like back and forth. We played in Norway, we played in Manchester, obviously, we played in Ireland and Scotland. Like,
yeah, it's insane.
Like, and like sometimes it's like the day after playing another game. It's like, okay, I don't want it to be an excuse of like, oh well, the players are all tired. It's like, well, that's no excuse, but it also might explain why everyone looks sluggish, isn't fit, and is picking up injuries all the time. Yeah, because preseason is supposed to be where you're getting yourself in condition, right? Rather than getting yourself ready for the season, rather than just looking to pick up as much money as you can for these these friendlies, like these glorified marketing opportunities. So maybe that's a case of it, and like that. And I don't want it to just kind of be it's the Glazers thing, but it's it's decisions by non-football people that are making these decisions.
Yeah. Well, there's this thing with the whole Glazer thing. Like, I know it is a meme at this point, but it's like there is a lot of noise around the club, and then there's a sort of this black cloud sort of hanging over United, and it feels like it's sort of every now and then you get a little bit of like optimism and like things are looking good, and then it rears its ugly head again. Like we've had similar things at West Ham with David Sullivan's ownership, like where it gets to a point where it's so toxic and so like fans are pissed off, like the manager's not happy. You got players who aren't happy, and it all just sort of filters down onto the pitch.
Yeah,
like I said, I know it sounds like a bit of a cliche and a bit of an easy excuse, but it does happen, and you've seen it not just for United, not just West Ham, but loads of other clubs in the past. Like you look at all the bad feeling around Tottenham last year. Like there was maybe not necessarily about spending, but like Spurs fans felt that Levy could have put his hand in his pocket a little bit more last year. Then you had all the whole thing with Conte basically just hating everything about his life at that moment in time, where he's being Tottenham manager. And like again, it all just sort of filters down onto the players, and it creates this sort of just really negative atmosphere where it might, especially when you're playing for a club like Man United, it's going to make it difficult to get to the standards that sort of expected of them. And I do think as well that there's a lot of, I feel like there needs to be some clarity on what Man United is at the moment, because it feels like on one side you've got, like, say, you got the media and the ex-pros and Gary Neville's and Roy Keane's of the world who sort of expect United to still be, or United should still be challenging for league titles every single season. But then, like, from what Ten Hag's trying to do, it feels like maybe obviously he does want to get them challenging sooner rather than later. But it feels to me like Ten Hag's there to sort of build it feels like a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but a bit of a project. Like it's a more of a long-term thing than I'm going to come in when you the league title in 3 seasons sort of thing. And it just feels like there needs to be a bit of clarity on what United is, what direction they're heading in sort of thing.
What stage they're in. And I think like the thing with that as well is if it is a project, there's been some very confusing transfer business. Signing players in their 30s, like, because that's a right here, right now kind of sign, right? And like looking at Casemiro and Eriksen, and as great as Casemiro was last year, he has just not looked at the races this year so far. But he didn't look at the races at the start of last season. It was like the middle of the season where he really came into it. We'll see how this season goes for him, but he's looking at every one of his 31 years right now. And yeah, it does need clarifying. Like I think Erik ten Hag said in an interview recently or in a press conference, like he was one of the things he was tasked with doing is like changing the culture around the club a little bit, like changing the mentality of it, and it does need that mentality change because. Yeah, like you say, there's ex-Man United players talking like they're still the Man United that were winning everything. But, like, that's 12 years ago. The last title was 12 years ago, 13 years at the end of this season. It's been a long time. And since then, we've won an FA Cup, we've won a League Cup, we've won a Europa League. Like, but it's not, it's not the challenging on all fronts at all times like it was for 25 years. So, like, that's why it feels like such a drastic change. But I've said it before, like the landscape of football has changed. United are in a very different position. They've been allowed to kind of get away from that winning mentality. And again, like without just again like playing into the meme, but that comes from the top down. Like hiring the wrong people in certain positions to bring in players, whether it be managers or backroom staff or whatever it is. This has gone on under their watch. And I think one of the big frustrations is it's obviously not a lack of spending, even though the Glazers have not put a single penny into the club. United are still able to spend a ton of money on players. It just really highlights how bad those signings have been. When you can spend as much as anyone, more than anyone else, on I think we've still got the highest wage bill in the Premier League. Like we're paying ungodly amounts of money for players. We're paying them ungodly amounts of money, and yet we're still in this situation where, how many of these players would get into the top teams? Like, there's maybe one or two players would get in the Arsenal team. Maybe one or two players would get in, like the Liverpool team. Maybe.
Yeah, that's not guaranteed, is it?
Maybe.
Like,
yeah. You think the only one. I don't want to get into that conversation, but like we've got a team there that does need a mentality change and an ethos change, and just. The feeling around the place needs changing. But like you say, it comes from the top down. You saw it with Newcastle, right? Very few changes in terms of personnel. You got a manager in who believed in the players and gave them a bit of belief. But the big thing was they got the owner out that everybody hated.
Yeah.
So, like,
well, even if you look at Arsenal, like I know Arsenal haven't changed ownership since the Kroenkes came in, but when Arteta came in, and also you got this vibe if you watch the All or Nothing series about them, but obviously they made changes at the ballroom level, got Josh Kroenke in to sort of be the guy on the ground essentially for them and actually sort of effectively run the club, because obviously Stan Kroenke wasn't ever really that interested. But you've got a guy there who, him and Mikel Arteta seem to be on the same wavelength in terms of where they see the club going and they sort of agreed on an overall vision for where they wanted to take Arsenal. And it's taken them, 4 years, I want to say?
Yeah.
Or they had some rough seasons, and there was plenty of opportunities where they could have bit the bullet and made the change on Arteta, but they stuck with him, and now they're reaping the rewards for having what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're sort of aligned on what their vision is. So it was like they backed him with the players that he wanted in the transfer market, not just the actual personnel themselves, but the sort of profile player they were going for. And it's just bit by bit, he has been able to do what Ten Hag's probably spoken about, which is change the culture of the club.
Yeah,
and get it
got
to
rid
what
of the
he wants to do.
toxic entities in the dressing room as well, right?
And this is going to be my and this is going to be my sort of question to you. It's like, I feel like personally, I don't know if you feel the same. United kind of needs to be a little bit more cutthroat this summer, and I feel like one of the problems was maybe overvaluing their fringe players a little bit too much. Like McTominay. I think McTominay's a terrible player. Obviously, we spoke about him in length when West Ham were linked with him. I'm not convinced anyone was ever going to pay 40 million for him. I think 30 million from West Ham was a pretty good offer. I know the Maguire thing was, we had a deal and everything agreed. It just came down to the payoff. But like, I feel like if that was Arsenal in that situation, sort of what I did with Aubameyang, where they just go, fuck it, just cut our losses, don't worry about it, just pay him off and just get him out the door so we can just sort of start again. I'm obviously not saying that they're the same sort of toxicity as Aubameyang was, but it's just that sort of just being cutthroat and getting rid of Deadwood by any means necessary, really, and taking some hits.
I think they were pretty cutthroat. I mean, there's a lot of players left. In the last 18 months, there's a lot of players going out the door. We ripped up Ronaldo's contract, so there is that kind of that thing of we will get rid of players, and I thought I don't think they've batted an eyelid at getting rid of Sancho had this all kicked off a month ago. Like, it was just the fact that it's happened after the transfer window's closed. It's like, and the stupid thing with that is, like, if he'd have just kept his mouth shut for 48 hours, right, he'd have been starting on the right wing.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
would have been getting a run
Yeah.
of the right wing, but he's just like foot, mouth, like, and it's just, just the United thing, right? But yeah, I agree. Like, we should have taken the payoff for Maguire. I think the big issue with that was, by the time that it all come round, like, all of our targets to replace him at centre back had fallen through, and we've already seen like how fragile our players are right now. Like, yeah, McTominay. To be honest, I don't think McTominay is going to be a problem in the dressing room. He seems like
no.
He seems like he's going to, he's come through the youth system. He seems like he's got his head screwed on. He's just not that great a player. But I guess if you're going to keep our player around, then that's the one that you would keep. You get rid of the ones who are kind of causing a bit of an issue, or Freddie's only got a year left on his deal. As great as he was at times, Fred, like, if you can get 15 million for him, you cash in, you can move on onto his career. But if you want to replace Scott McTominay with a similar quality player, United are probably going to have to pay 40 million for him, because we've all seen how fleeced United get for their transfer fees. Like, 35 million pound striker, we pay 70 million for. Like, it's just it's just what happens. Teams go, yeah, oh, United, oh yeah, let's just double that.
Yeah.
So it probably would have cost that amount of money to replace him anyway. But yeah, we're just at the start of a thing, and the whole, like Cameron says, how stupid are people who are calling for ETH's head? It's like, what does that achieve? Like, A, who's available who come in and be able to work with these players? B, we've just spent 18 months buying a load of players for this guy, the players that this manager wants and wants to work with, and has shown in the past that can work with. Like, and he's shown in the last 18 months what he is capable of doing. He's shown he is a good coach. He's shown he is a good manager. He's shown that he can make the tough decisions that a manager at Man United will have to make. And I actually quite like his attitude of just being really straight down the middle with everything. Like, there's what you see is what you get with him. Maybe after... yeah, not many points at the minute.
No.
I think, of like, catastrophic season this year aside, I think you've just got to see out the 3-year contract with him and give him that time to actually make those changes and start implementing this stuff. And like you say, like, Arteta is the perfect example. The amount of people that I saw, like Arsenal fans, that were calling for his head after 2 years. So,
some of them still are.
Yeah. I mean, football fans, aren't they? But it's just a basket case of a club at the minute, and the fact that he's getting any performances out of anyone is a testament to what he can do. I mean, we've all worked in shitty work environments, right? When, like, decisions above you are all being terrible, and no one's motivated to do anything. Training must be rough at the minute, because, like, everyone's like, the players are falling out with the manager. People who are friends with Jadon Sancho are in the first team. Like, there's all of the off the field stuff kicking off. Like, who knows what's going on? They don't know who the owners are. Like, all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, Dallo, like you said, Dallo's not going to be wondering if someone's coming in if the ownership changes. But at the same time, it's like, knowing the future, the future of football. Football's a short career, right? You want to know that the club that you're at is in the right, on the right trajectory. Like, and if you have players there who are going, well, maybe I want to leave. Maybe I want to go and do something. If this is going to take another 6 years, I'm not going to be playing here anymore. like, I need to go and go somewhere where it's going to be worthwhile. Like, even Rashford, who's like seen as like the young player, like the United star, like, he's going to be like 28, 29 in 3 or 4 years. Like, if this could be like, these are his prime years. So, like, even when he was being touted with PSG, I don't want to see him go. I love Marcus Rashford, but I couldn't blame him if this basket case of a club keeps carrying on like it is. We could just see that, like, those kind of players pushing for moves and going elsewhere to actually go and win something with a team with owners that actually want to push and win things, rather than just keep it on life support so you can get your Champions League money payout every year and take your dividends.
Yeah. I don't see the point in sacking Ten Hag. I mean, I thought we're saying this every week, but, like, only 5 games in. So, like,
if it's 15, 20 games in and it's a similar kind of thing and we're still sat in 12, then yeah, there's big questions being asked. But
10 games is seems to be the metric, I always think, right? I think you always give a manager, like, unless it's Scott Parker, you always give the manager the first 10 games of the season. Like,
he made his own bed with that.
He did. But yeah, I feel like that's the best way to approach it. I do think some of the reaction about Ten Hag. I think some of the questions around him are fair in terms of, like I say, decisions he's made, how he sets the team up. I do think United are a little bit easy to play against at the moment, but I do also think that might be down to, like you say, the patchwork of the midfield at the moment. Well, I'll be super interested to see how much of a difference Amrabat makes once he's fit.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's good thing you got no one difficult in midweek. So.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the thing. Is I think that's almost like a nothing game. I think away against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. I don't even know if I'm going to watch it, to be honest. I don't think I don't fancy being that depressed. But after that, like, I mean, when you look at the games as well, like we beat Forest, made hard work of it, like went down 2-0 early, but then dominated the rest of the game. Lost away against Spurs, where we, again, like I was saying earlier, should have finished our chances. If we finish those chances, is it too far away from Spurs? But again, away against Spurs, new look Spurs playing Ange ball, like they actually look really good, and I hate it. Got away with one against Wolves. Everyone has to hold their hands up with that. Lose away to Arsenal in added time. It can happen to anyone. Like Arsenal, who pushed Man City for the title last year, and then get beaten by like everyone's favourite second team in the Premier League, like who play wonderful football. It's like I say, like people are talking like Brighton aren't great. It's like, oh, United have lost at home against Brighton. It's like, Brighton and mint. We're a basket case with all of our players are injured, and Brighton and mint. I think the next month is going to be. Well, we're obviously just not as massive as West Ham.
No.
But the next month or two, we've got like some winnable games, and like you say, after 10 games, it could be a very different looking, very different looking table, very different feeling club. We've got Burnley and Palace the next 2 games in the Premier League. Then we play Brentford at home. Brentford are a pain in the arse, but they haven't got Ivan Toney anymore. And as great as they are, they do miss him. Then we've got Sheffield United.
It's a kind run.
So we've had a tough first 5 games. We've got a kinder next 5. If we win 4 of those 5,
it's all looking rosy.
I don't know if it's looking rosy, but it's not looking as doom and gloom as everyone's making out. And then we've got the small matter of the Manchester derby just after that, so let's not talk about that.
Not on holiday that week. That's all right.
When is that actually? 29th of October. I'm anywhere that I can't see a TV. But that's just the case. We'll see how it goes after another 5 games. Anyone calling for Erik ten Hag said is mental, but as we all know, people are looking for clicks and reactions, so I'll definitely be putting ETH in our thumbnails.
Absolutely. Because you won't get that here, viewers, but you will. But we believe what we say. We believe what we say.
Well, speaking of West Ham being massive, you were massive for 45 minutes.
Yeah, we were.
As someone, obviously, I didn't catch the game live. I didn't watch the United game live either because they were both at 3 p.m. But I caught the highlights. As someone who was at the game, how was it?
For 45 minutes, I thought West Ham were flawless. Like, is the best way I can sum it up. I thought, and actually, it wasn't even just like, oh, we were really good defensively and we nicked a goal on the break. Like, the goal was really well worked, like lovely work from Soufal and Bowen, and a really good cross from Soufal to pick up Ward-Prowse. But some of the football we were playing, like when we actually were trying to, because that was the most impressive thing. It wasn't just like hold for like 45 minutes. Like when we did get the ball, we were trying to get at them. And gotta say, man, Lucas Paqueta is just an absolute joy to watch at the moment. Like, and he definitely played like someone who had a point to prove and wanted to sort of flirt with Pep a little bit and be like, this is what you could have had. But if he's doing that in a West Ham show and he's performing like that, I don't really care, to be honest. Some of the link-up play was great. The way was excellent, and we look, obviously City missed a couple of sitters in the first half, and like Areola is just, I don't know what's happened to him over the summer, but he's turned into the best goalkeeper in the world apparently. So I'm here for it. I think we cleared a couple off the line as well. Like City had their chances, of course they did. The Man City, but I thought I think when you're talking about this sort of game, you always have to put into context that it is Man City. Like when I'm talking about this, because it's like we gave them a really good go at it, and I would just love to know how it would have transpired had we not conceded a goal 47 seconds into the second half. But that, unfortunately, is what happens when you come up against someone like Jeremy Doku, who, he's very, 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 very good. I didn't know how much of a role he'd have to play in City's team this year. And he may have games where he'll struggle, but like the best way I can describe it is Vladimir Soufal is usually pretty good up against most wingers in the league. Like, yeah, there'll be games where some wingers eventually get the better of them, but they'll have to work bloody hard to do it. Like, he's an absolute bastard of a right back to play against, I can imagine, because he'll just go at you. But Doku had him on absolute toast for the entire game, pretty much. And the goal was really well taken. And it's one of them, man. I think you're under pressure, that for that long from a really good side. Like, eventually something's got to give. And unfortunately, Aguero misjudged a ball from the sort of jumper ball that Alvarez plays that they
was
tried
such
a few
an FM
times.
header. That.
It was
so Football Manager.
It was annoying because I think they tried that a few times, that sort of like dink ball over the top. And I think between him and Zuma and Ariola, like, sort of everyone was dealing with it quite well. And I think that one, there was just a little bit too much height on it. And he, like I say, just sort of misjudged it. And it's one of them, it's fine margins when you play someone like City. I think to get a win against them, you've got to be flawless and have a little bit of luck go your way.
Yeah.
To get a draw against them, I'd say like 9 of your 11 players have to be flawless, and you need a bit of luck to go your way.
It was
I think we had about half our team were pretty much flawless, and unfortunately, like 4 or 5 were average to okay, and that's just not enough if you want to beat City. But as a like, all I ever ask for West Ham going into these types of games where you play one of the big teams is like just put in a shift and like just give it a go. Like, I don't expect us to be gung ho, leave 2 centre backs back at all times, sort of thing. But like, yeah, just give it a go and put a real shift in, and that's all you can really ask for. I was very, very generally really proud of how they played yesterday. I thought they gave everything, and just Man City are really good.
Yeah, when you go 1-0 up against Man City and you see the football mutant miss every chance under the sun, you must go, the stars are aligning.
Do you know what? It's the first, I generally, because I wasn't at the, I was coming back from holiday, first game of last season when we played City, so I missed City that week. So Saturday was the first time I'd seen Erling Haaland like in the flesh. And bearing in mind, I sit like quite high up behind one of the goals. They were coming out and lining up to do the handshake style. This one, I went, Jesus Christ, he's massive. Honestly, just watched him basically tower over every other player on the pitch. I'm like, oh my God, he's ridiculous. Like, this man's not human. But yeah, like I say, when he's missing like about 4 or 5 really, really good chances, like you say, you just have a bit of a feeling that it's going to go your way. And then there's like, obviously, Antonio misses. Of course he does. Antonio misses a 1-on-1 with Ederson because he, basically passed it to him with his first touch. And I've got to say as well, Zuma had a chance to make it 2-1. Ederson pulls off an absolute worldie of a save.
Yeah.
Like, from a corner, like, that was the goal in front of me where I sit, and it's one of them, like, your head's in. I just thought it was in.
Yeah.
And like Ederson took full stretch and just tips. It was such a good save. But yeah, like Erling Haaland's really good, and I got to see him play live. So it could have been a worse weekend, I suppose.
Yeah, this, like you say, like again in those kind of games, you just want to see your team give a shit. And like you say, I think you gave him, from what I've seen in the highlights anyway, it looked like you gave him a real game, and it's like as tough a game as you can give Man City, without beating them really. And I just want to go back onto your comments of Doku as well. Like, I watched his first game; he looked a little bit shaky. On Saturday, sorry. He looked immense. Like, he had that swagger. He takes people on. He's just out of the blocks so quick. He looks like the perfect foil for Jack Grealish, who's that more. He'll take the ball into his feet, slow the game down, let things happen around him. Like, it's just almost impossible to take the ball off him, right? Whereas when you can bring on Doku or have a slightly different dynamic, you can have Doku get the ball and just run at people, and that's scary. Like, when you can get past him and you can blister past people, like having those 2 different kinds of players, like, it just makes Man City even scarier to come up against, right?
It gives him a new dimension as well. Like, obviously, he's been brought in to be that Mahrez replacement, and Mahrez, as good as Mahrez was, and quite underrated, I think, during his time at City, just because he's a great player in an amazing City team. It's kind of like the Bernardo Silva thing. Like, any other team Bernardo Silva plays for, people talk about him like he's the best player in the world, or one of. But because he plays that City team, it's just like, yeah, he's a good City player. Like,
he's another one.
I think
150 charges.
I think Mahrez kind of suffered from that same thing, but like he offers him something different than what Mahrez did. I think Doku. I think Pep said it after the game. Like, it was like he's a winger. Like, whereas Mahrez was more of like a creative playmaker-y type. Whereas Doku, he's good with either feet. He'll go to the byline. He'll cut in. Like, it will cause teams untold amounts of problems. Like you say, if you got a situation where you're a fullback and you've been playing against Grealish for 60 minutes trying to figure out which way he's going to go, and then all of a sudden Doku comes on. Like, you'd want to retire there and then. Like, it's just like, I couldn't imagine anything worse. But yeah, they've done it again. They've unearthed. I say unearthed. Obviously, everyone knew about Jeremy Doku, but like they've got a player in, and he's just seems like he's going to slot right in and be brilliant. So great, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the scary thing, isn't it? It's like this Man City side had not a lot of aging players, but quite a few players who were like getting into their early 30s, like obviously on the slowdown, and they're just very quietly just replacing them all with like teenagers and people in their early 20s, and before you know it, they'll have like a bunch of 25-year-olds again. It's like, when did that happen?
Yeah, I've got to say as well, like, because obviously there was a lot of talk, obviously, with Gundogan going, and they wanted Paqueta to replace him, or sort of be that. Well, I guess he was more the De Bruyne replacement because of the injury, but like they obviously after a midfielder to replace Gundogan, ended up getting Matthias Nunes, who came off the bench, but what you're seeing more and more of is City playing with both Haaland and Julian Alvarez. And obviously, as fantastic as Haaland is, Alvarez is a special player, man. Like, I said to my mate, like, he's not, I'm not comparing the two. Like, I'm just saying they've got similar sort of, they play in a similar way, but there's bits of Messi in Alvarez, just in terms of the way he carries the ball at his feet and how quick he is to move the ball with his feet. And just there's glimpses of like, I said to my mate, like, yeah, you can tell he's Argentinian. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he's grown up, obviously. You can tell he's grown up idolizing Lionel Messi because there are similarities to him. But he's a really, really good player.
He's got that unerring ability that like certain players have, where they can just get the ball in a really crowded area and appear out of it with the ball. He just kind of like phases through existence and goes, it's like, I'm here now. But then he's got the quality to make the finish or find the pass as well. Like, I think when City signed him, everyone thought, oh, he's just like it's a backup striker. He's so much more than that. I think, like, he's, he drops deeper, he's creative, he can take a man on, he can spot a pass. He's just got a very complete game for a very, very young player. And there's an Argentinian regular in my stream who was waxing lyrical about him. If you can say it, for years and years, and going on about it. And I kind of like, it became a bit of a meme just to kind of take the piss out of him. But watching him play, especially slotting into that City team, it's like, yeah, you can see why he was excited about him.
Yeah, like I say, being at the game, and like I say, you obviously get the opportunity to just sort of watch what players do off the pitch and stuff like that, and like the runs they make and all this sort of thing, and it does make you appreciate sort of how good they actually are when you see them in the flesh. And that, like I say, that's Manchester City. That's why they're going to win the league again this year. Like, I think, as much as I do think Arsenal and Liverpool have potential to run them quite close, they're just so strong. And unless they get a freak run of injuries, which they never seem to do anyway, I don't see who's going to stop them. I mean, I've got to say, though, and again, I feel like I'm moaning about Twitter every week, but this is my platform to vent, I suppose. So here I go. I don't. There are certain, and to be fair, it's not even just Twitter, because I heard it around me at the game as well. I do think there is a section of West Ham fans who just want David Moyes out. They don't like him. They don't like the style of foot he plays, and they just want him gone. And it's almost like nothing he can do is good enough. Like, when I'm hearing people on the way back from the game yesterday being like moaning that we should have tried to do more to beat Man City, and I'm just like, what more do you want? If we, I guess, like I said earlier, you go out there going all gung ho attack, you get spanked. Yeah, and like the most mad thing was, and it's the most un-David Moyes thing I think I've seen since he's been at the club. It's 1-1 with half an hour to go, and he makes a double substitution to bring on 2 attacking players. Like, he went for it. Yeah. Like, what more do we want? It's just we're not good enough to beat Man City.
Not a lot of people are.
No, and I saw that. I'm going to call them out because I've been doing my head in this poxy YouTube channel called, like, West Ham YouTube channel called Claret and Booze, who just, all they do is just moan about David Moyes. And he put up this massive, like, ranty tweet after Saturday being like, oh, well, Sheffield, they created 2 less chances against Sheffield United. And so therefore Sheffield United are better than us. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't make it, like, you're not making any sense. Like, you just hate David Moyes so much. You're just throwing out random statistics just to try and prove your point. Just accept the fact we're quite good this season. So I said after the game on Saturday, like, we're going to be fine this year. Like, I've seen enough of us from the first 5 games. We're going to be all right. We're not going to be in any relegation trouble. We might push for Europe. That's fine.
Might be top 10. The thing is being comfortable in the league as well means that you can take Europe a little bit more seriously, right? Go for the back-to-back European trophies.
And that's what I can only speak for myself, obviously, but I feel like that's what majority of fans would want. After last year, how would you not want that?
Yeah.
Obviously, look, you want to have European football again next year, of course, but it's not going to last forever. It can't do. Like we're West Ham. Like
everybody wants European football. There is literally, I'd say, legitimately 10 teams who should be fighting in terms of the quality of their squad and the performances of the last few years or the size of the club or whatever. There's 10 teams there who want European football. There's 6 or 7 teams who want Champions League football. That's just the state of play right now. There's and those numbers don't mix.
No.
So like someone's going to miss out. But yeah, if you get yourself to like another European semi-final, whatever, and finish 10th, like that's a great season.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you get
Man
this
United
like when you. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if you get this like I guess particularly with United at the moment, but it's like you sometimes I get the impression that some fans actually would rather us fail just so they can be proved right. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know if this sort of new age of, again, whether Twitter has anything to do with this, but it probably does. But it's like this sort of like new age of football fan where it's like I'd rather my team lose so I could be proven right rather than me go, do you know I got it wrong. Like, and I'm happy to hold my hands up. Like I wasn't entirely convinced about Moyes having another year, but so far, he's making me look like a right mug. And I mean, I'm all, even when he came back for 2 years, the running joke was like, yeah, I'm an idiot. I got it wrong. It's fine.
You want to be proved wrong in those situations, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You know what I think it is? I think the big thing is it is Twitter. It is a social media thing. And I don't even necessarily think it's the thing that people want. It's just saying shit like that gets interactions so your online ego can feel a bit better about itself. I think that's all it is.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. And as people keep telling me, I shouldn't let it annoy me, but here I am.
But here we are complaining about it on the internet. Well, speaking of controversial, online opinions, England v Scotland happened, and Harry Maguire did Harry Maguire. So,
oh, Harry,
I genuinely don't get me wrong. I don't think he should be United. I think he needs to move on. He needs to do other things. I don't hate the guy though, right? And I don't want to see him going through this. Like, he looks hexed. He has got a curse on him. Like there is just something that has happened to him where anything that can go wrong does go wrong. The last 2 goals he scored have been for Scotland and Sevilla. Like, it's not a great look for him, and some of it's like a little bit of his own making, with the like, oh, I don't need to prove to anything to anyone. I start for England. Like, I've been United captain for the last 4 years, but like, I get that he's like trying to not necessarily flex, but protect himself. But it just
you can't expect him to come out and be like
tone deaf.
I know, but it's weird because you can't really expect him to come out and be like, I'm having a fucking horrible time. Do you know what I mean?
I'm shit.
Imagine that. That'd be great.
It does feel like that's what some people expect of him, though.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I mean, maybe I'm being, because I'm at a point, and I have been for a while with Maguire, I do just feel sorry for him. Like, whether, as much as I say United should have paid him off, there's also the flip side of that, which is just take the 6 million and leave. Like, you're going to play football week in, week out. Like, you've got enough money, but so it's like he does it to himself a little bit in that regard. I agree, but I do on the whole feel sorry for him, because it's just like, I think this is my reason why I wasn't, and I think he had a good World Cup, but the main reason I would have personally not taken him to the World Cup was if when he plays, everything he does is going to be under a microscope. Like and he'll do things that will make the odd meaningless mistake in a game that other players can just, dodgy first touch or a misplaced pass, other players will get away with. But if Maguire does it becomes part of an updated Harry Maguire fail compilation. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, I can't even begin to imagine the amount of pressure he's probably playing under. And maybe that is on Southgate for not picking him. But again, the flip side is that he's obviously showing faith in him and showing trust in him, and that might help with his confidence in some way. But I do understand the point of it's possibly putting him in the firing line. But I also, and him coming on against Scotland at half time, was it a necessary change? I know Gay was injured, but like, you had Colwell, you had Tamori. 2-0 up, maybe just wanted some experience in that back line just to sort of see things out. And I don't necessarily blame him for the own goal. I do think it's just mostly bad luck.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's a bit of a weak attempt at a block, but how many other times does that just go out for a corner?
Yeah,
Like,
but the thing is with Harry Maguire as well is in that situation is he's behind play again. Like he's always behind
Yeah.
the play. Like if he's actually in position, that he's not stretching for it.
yeah,
But he's behind the play again because he's facing his own goal because he's misread the movement and again, like I don't want to like bag on at him. Like I don't think he's a dreadful player. I just think in certain systems he just gets shown up. And I think, yeah, like you say, I think you're damned if you do and damned if you don't with Southgate because you either don't show faith in a guy that's been really good for you, and then potentially have an issue where he feels like, you know, you're not backing him, or you do pick him, show the faith in him, and you know something goes wrong inevitably because it's Harry Maguire, right?
yeah.
So like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't when you're Southgate in that situation. But it didn't really matter anyway. Battered the Scots because it's Scotland. They got a bit carried away thinking they were good because they beat some teams no one's ever heard of, and then England put in a mediocre performance and slapped them around. So.
Do you think it's mediocre? From what I saw, I thought we were in. I thought we were. It's not the best I've ever seen England play, but I thought we were in cruise control. Like whether that's down
that's
to
what I mean. Yeah, like didn't really have to didn't really have to try too much. It does help when Jude Bellingham's the best player on planet Earth, but
he's a freak. He's an absolute freak. I don't, and he's like only what 21? Not even that probably. I think he's like 20, right?
Yeah.
He looks like he's been playing for like professional men's football for 25 years.
Yeah, it is insane. Like just the composure he has in every situation. It seems like he's one of those players who just, even when he doesn't have a flashy game, and like even when he doesn't have an amazing like, oh my god, he's done something incredible game, he never puts a foot wrong. Like I don't think he's ever going to put in less than a 6 out of 10. Like he doesn't seem to make mistakes, but then he can do wild stuff like that. It looked really he made it look really simple, where he just did like kind of that spin drag, burst past 2 lines, played a perfectly weighted ball through to Harry Kane. It's like he made that look really easy. That's not easy. That is world class football play right now. Is making it look easy is the difficult part of that. But he's unbelievable, and I think, you know, this is why I was saying, like, I think England in terms of like attacking options have got some of the best in the world at the minute. Like, yeah, France have got Mbappe, but when you look at like the front 3/front 4 and the options that England have got up top, like there's so many different combinations you can go with up there that are all world class. Like we're going to touch on him a little bit later on, but like James Maddison, like he's showing how good he can be in a better team. Like he was in a poor Leicester team for a couple of years, looked incredible. He's now got players who are a lot more intelligent up around him, and he's looking world class. He can't get in the team. You've got Jack Grealish, who's constantly like a top performer for Man City. He can get in the team. You know, Rashford, if he can find his form from last year, like he's fighting out for it. You got Saka, you got, you know, Phil Foden as well. Like you've got so many options up there. The only thing that's missing is a proper second foil for Harry Kane. But if Harry Kane's fit and firing, you just put the ball in front of him in front of goal, and it's probably going in.
It's
unless
such
he needs
a
to
shame.
square it to. Unless he needs to square it to win a tournament, but you know.
Yeah, it's such a shame that with what's happened with Tony, because I actually think Tony would have been the perfect number 2. Like I know they're different players, obviously, but in terms of the way England play, I think Tony suits it pretty much perfectly. Like Wilson's fine. Wilson's absolutely fine, and if he ends up being our second choice for the Euros, I've got no real issues with that.
Wilson's a good player. Like, you know, Watkins, like he's having a really good time at Villa.
Watkins
like,
as well.
I think there's a load of players that are very similar. Like I'd probably put Nketiah into that mold as well. Like a lot of players who are very good Premier League players, but like just having that other, like, because it feels like there's 2 world-class players for each of those attacking positions apart from up front. You got Harry Kane, who is world-class, and then it's a big drop off to a very good player, which is still not bad.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, it's exciting. Like I think from an English perspective, I think it's exciting. I think we'll go. I think we'll do well in the Euros. Whether we'll win it or not remains to be seen.
Knockout football,
like exactly, and exactly. I think as long as they, you know, if we go out to France again in the quarters or the semis and we play. We run them as close as we did last time, then I don't really know what more you can ask for, really. I do think there's a potential. I don't think he'll do it, but I think there is a potential for Some games anyway. I don't think he'll do it for those sort of big games where we're going to give up chances. But I would like to see more of a Trent, Bellingham, Rice midfield.
Yeah.
As a three, because I know it was only against Mortal when he did it, but I just remember looking at it and thinking that has got so much potential to be one of the best midfields in a tournament. Like if we just get the balance right. But like I said, I don't think we'll see it that much in the Euros when we get there.
I think the big thing with is just watching England. You don't want to come out because it feels like every time like they've either lost in a final or knocked out of a semi-final. There's always been that thing of why didn't they go for it? Why did he stick with this? Or why did he make these changes too late into the game? Like, why did he give Marcus Rashford, who'd been on fire in the World Cup, 8 minutes to try and get something? Like, just little things like, and it's, there's things with the, like, same with Ten Hag for United. I mean, like, why is he making those changes? I think what a lot of England fans want is just like kind of to not have those thoughts, like not have those regrets. It's like, all right, well, we gave it all, but we were just beaten by the better team. I think that's fine. When you come out of it going, oh, like there was so many things that could have happened, so many things that could have been done to change that. Why didn't it happen? And it's just that wanting a little bit more. Like the final against Italy was the perfect one of like you score early on, sit on the back foot, and then when Italy make tactical changes that swing it in their favour, there's just no change from England, and it's like, all right, let's just hold on, like just hope.
Yeah.
And then you know what I mean? Like, why? Yeah. Could there have been another change? And I think that's all that people like, especially the Southgate critics. I think that's the big thing. Like, don't want like the regret of like not doing something. Like, rather try it and it just get beaten by the better team. But that's I think that's a broader Southgate discussion that we can definitely get our teeth into at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I think all I'll say on it is, and again, we'll like I said, we'll definitely have to do a full podcast about this because I think me and you sit on different sides of this. But I think the only thing I will say with that is, I think you get that with any time you lose a game of football. Like you look at oh, what could we have done? Do you know what I mean? Like, even with the West Ham City game yesterday, like there's things you could maybe look at and go, oh, what if we had done this differently, or what if done this differently? Like, I think it's especially at that level. When you're talking like a World Cup quarterfinal or Euros final against, like, at the time was a really, really in-form Italy team. Like, I think they got like 30 odd games unbeaten or something like that. And a really good France team who got to the World Cup final. Like, ultimately it comes down to margins and like you sort of live and die by your decisions, right? So it's kind of like you take a chance by making a decision and sometimes it goes in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. Like, there's a perfect example of that actually was that World Cup quarterfinal. Like, so many people have said to me afterwards, like, I can't believe he let Harry Kane take that second penalty. And I'm like, but that is so easy to say in hindsight. Because if he goes, oh, do you know what, Harry, you've had the first one, Mark Rashford, you'll take the second one. If Rashford misses that, what does everyone say? Why didn't Kane take it again?
That was like, a stupid argument. That like you have there's a reason teams have a penalty taker. It's because they're the best at taking penalties. You have your penalty take the penalty. Your penalty taker take the penalties. Like that's just the way it is. But there's a lot of terrible opinions on the internet, and we seem to find a lot of them every week. But speaking of awful takes, it's time for your awful pundit take of the week. I've actually got my own submission in for this as well this week, but I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. Now I have to confess, I didn't see him say this live, but I've read the quote. I've read the quotes quote for quote and had it verified by my sources. It's from our favourite former Sky pundit, Graham Souness, who said when talking about Jude Bellingham, and I think was this before the Scotland game or after the Scotland game?
Before the Scotland game.
It was before the Scotland game. Okay, bearing in mind it's before the Scotland game. Bearing in mind the start to the season that Bellingham has had for Real Madrid, like. Bear that in mind for context. Souness said, if you look at James Maddison's numbers, his stats of scoring goals and creating chances, and you compare them to Bellingham, he shoots Bellingham off the park. He is far better than Bellingham in creating chances and scoring goals. He's choosing Bellingham, Southgate, because he plays for Real Madrid. I think there is room for two of them. If Bellingham is going to play off Harry Kane, I don't think he's as good as Maddison at that. Like, I think in there is some form of a point that might be, where it's basically saying, like, is there a way they can play together? But to just go, he's only picking because he plays for Real Madrid, is like just complete nonsense, given that he picked him when he was playing for Dortmund, especially in the last tournament.
Yeah, and given the fact that even if he is picking him off the fact because he plays for Real Madrid, it's because he scored 5 goals and got 3 assists in 5 games. Like,
yeah, there's also that.
It's like he's only
has Maddison got that?
He's only picking him because he's great.
yeah. It's such a weird argument. Like,
Yeah.
I love the fact he goes like, well, if you look at the numbers, it's like, you haven't looked at the numbers, Graham.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
There's so many takes from Graham Souness where I just don't believe he's actually watched the person he's talking about play football at all ever.
Yeah. I agree.
Where he just kind of goes, all right, what can I say? I don't quite like this guy. I'm going to find a reason to say something controversial just so that he gets clipped up. I'm convinced that he is told to do that. It's like, look, Graham, everyone knows you're a gobshite. Just go out there, say something ridiculous so we can get a lot of YouTube clicks. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Like,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it would not. I would not be astounded if that came out to be true.
I think someone made this point. I can't remember where I saw this, but it was basically like, Talk Sport you expect it from. And I know Troy Deeney has done an interview where he said like he went on Talk Sport and they were basically saying to him like, can you say like certain things, like basically so we can get clips and whatnot. But obviously you see how much Sky are pushing their YouTube content and stuff. Like I generally wouldn't be surprised they got producers in their edge being like, need to get some clips, lads. Like,
yeah.
Need to think about the YouTube yeah. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, so shock horror, Graham Souness with the terrible take. And I want to go to another. It does again feel a bit like shooting fish in a barrel with Jamie Carragher. But he's gone on his yearly rant about a player that United have signed being terrible for some reason. So he's I think it was in an article, I can't remember which paper it was for. But he's basically said that Onana in pre-season having a go at Harry Maguire, he was only doing it for clout. So like just trying to get like, I don't know, like fans on his side, or like just doing it to make headlines or something like that, which is the most stupid thing I can think. Like, no, is it more likely that, I mean, like, I must say, like, people have been tweeting Jamie Carragher videos of him yelling at defenders through his entire career. So he's just one of those goalkeepers who will call out a defender when they do something wrong. Yeah. So like, he's been doing it his entire career. But also, is it not just maybe the case that Harry Maguire was shite and did something wrong, so got shouted at, and it's about time someone called him out on it? And they're like, just because he's walking around with a face like a slapped arse and he's looking for a reason to defend Harry Maguire because he's an England centre-back, I presume. Like, it doesn't mean that Onana is like, it doesn't mean he's doing it just for clout. That is just, again, it's just another thing where like Jamie Carragher wants to create like a storm in a teacup about a United player for some reason. Last year it was Martinez because he was 5'9". Like, and then at the end of the season he had to roll it back and say, actually, yeah, he's been one of the better centre-backs in the league this year.
Yeah.
Like, this year, Onana, he's just doing it for clout. And I no doubt there'll be some Monday Night Football where he reels out the stats I was saying earlier where, oh, well, he's conceded a load of goals. It's like, yeah, they're all in the top corner, mate. Like, what?
Yeah.
What do you want? He just decides his victim, and it is surprisingly a new Man United signing.
Do you know what? I do quite like Carragher as a pundit overall. I think Neville's lost me a fair bit over the last couple of years. Because I quite liked him as a duo, but Neville's been going off the deep end for a while. Carragher I quite like. I just think he needs to sometimes keep his like shit house, I'm gonna wind people up stuff to Twitter. If he's doing it on Twitter, I haven't really got an issue with it. It's when he's like writing articles about it or being on like Monday Night Football and just sort of being a bit of a going fishing. Do you know what I mean? That's where I'm like, I'm not really watching. Yeah, it's like I'm not really watching that. I'm not watching Monday Night Football for that. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to watch actual decent like analysis and conversations and stuff rather than just like I'm going to wind up Gary Neville. Like he's doing on the overlap. That's great.
I was just about to say, if I want to watch you wind up Gary Neville, I'll watch the overlap.
Yeah, it works. It works really well in that forum, but not on Monday Night Football, Jamie. So wind it in a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Wind your neck in, sunshine. Well, we two awful pundit takes this week. I'm sure we'll have many, many more as the weeks carry on, but we are going to wrap it up there for today. Cheers for tuning in, guys. Wherever you are watching or listening to us, would be on YouTube, Spotify, or any of your other podcast vendors. Make sure you're subscribing, liking, leaving comments, doing all that good stuff. Engagement, as we know, makes the social media world go around. You can find us everywhere at the United Frontcast. Hopefully you'll see us. Well, hopefully you'll join us again next week. We'll be here, so you know where to find us. Just tune in, guys, and we'll catch you next time. Laters.
Bye.